Hi again. This is the second video in our certification program, and this is giving the big picture, part two. And what I want to look at here is the organizational structure for Christos International in terms of what we're modeling after and why it may be like, whoa, you can't do that. Well, yes, we can. That's typically what happens when you have a paradigm shift, right? There's a resistance. We're not familiar with it. And so I want to go over that construct with you. And I want to discuss a little bit more about the philosophy elements I mentioned in the last video and make it clear. And then just develop the model so you understand why that works and why we're going in that direction. So the model basically is based on the Charter Management Organization model, which was set in part in motion by a man under Reagan's administration, the head of education for Ronald Reagan. And basically what he saw was the need for values in education and the lack of it. His name was William Bennett. And he started a program called K-12. Well, it's become something different than it started out to be, but basically the idea was to provide an alternative educational venue for children to be able to learn values if a charter school was organized. And you could have a value-centered educational experience. And so he published his book, The Book of Virtues, and focused in on the need for that in education in the public realm. Well, that was basically didn't create a wholesale reform because that would be impossible with the monolith of public education. But it did create a little subgroup, a little small pocket of what eventually became charter schools. And what happened in that pocket is in many cases, these charter schools became privatized. And the reason they became privatized is kind of the reason I think that Christos has such an extraordinary possibility to succeed. The reason they became privatized is the monopolistic situation of public education, and everybody should get this from having gone through COVID, is ridiculous. The amount of money that's spent that doesn't produce results is ridiculous, okay? It's staggering. I mean, there's no business that would be allowed to continue. It's a state-supported monopoly, and it doesn't produce the results. We're 32nd in the world in education. Somebody wake up, please. Okay, we've just gone downhill, downhill, and downhill compared to the other industrialized nations. Why? Because we're teaching a valueless education. Why is that so important? Because the kids' minds don't know what data to hold and what data not to hold. And if you're an educator, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Common Core and these other things, here's the data you need to hold, but there are no values in which to scaffold the data. What data is important and what data is not? We'll think critical thinking. Well, you can't without values. You can't have critical thinking without values. Are you nuts? So there's no place to put the knowledge. It's just knowledge stuck in your head. Let me give you an example. I was at Target about 6 months ago, and I ordered 7 crates that were black and 3 crates that were white because I needed 10 crates. And I got there and they had 5 crates that were white and 5 crates that were black. And they couldn't figure out how to solve the problem. I mean, the supply chain inside the store was broken. And it caused great consternation. And I suddenly I'm standing before the general manager of the store, his 2 assistants. I've got my boss on the phone, and I'm whatever. And I said, everybody, I think I have an idea. And everybody's like, whoa, what's the old white guy gonna say? And I said, all crates are created equal. And they all kind of went. I said, so I'll just take whatever you can give me. Just give me 10 crates. And as I walked out with the young man that was with me, he's Afro-American, I looked at him, bright, strong, athletic guy, maybe 17 years of age. And I said, son, I didn't say son, but I said, sir, or gentleman, I don't know how I addressed him, but do you know what I meant when I said all creates are created equal? Do you know what I was referring to? And he kind of looked at me and said, do you know the statement, all men are created equal and endowed with their creator with inalienable rights? Have you ever heard that before? I said, oh, yes, sir. I've heard that somewhere in history. It's somewhere in American history. That's it. That's it right there. It's somewhere. See, the knowledge doesn't have value anymore. It's just knowledge that you regurgitate in a test, a high-stakes test. Just knowledge you regurgitate. So we got a better program. We really got a better program. But we use the charter management organizational model. So instead of every school district and every private Christian school having its own board, which we suggest it does, but it's not a board that controls the curriculum or the ideology. We control the curriculum and the ideology. Thank you very much. Because we're trained professionals that dedicated our life to this. And we kind of know where things are going. May you have a board to help formulate how to implement in each local context, in each local situation, and adapt the curriculum as you need to and pay for the teachers that you need to have. But don't reinvent the wheel every time. It's a ridiculous waste of God's time, energy, and effort. Now, I'm not saying anything wrong about people that have had well-developed boards over a period of time, but we can't start 500 schools in 2 years with all of them developing their own boards, right? Their own curriculum. Come on now. Think about it. If we want to reach into the society right now and touch them at the pain spot and provide the Christian education, we have to have a system that works. And the charter management organization comes in and says, hey, this is the way you do it. And every school is basically the same. And we say, yeah, every school is the same, but every school is different. But the core curriculum is the same. And we're going to get into that and what makes that core curriculum. There are 4 components that make the unique aspect of the Christos program is these 4 components and the way they work together. And I think you'll find it, if you're an educator, I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating. But this is a paradigm shift. This isn't the way you went to school. And you don't communicate the way you used to communicate. You're communicating through cell phones right now. Your dad never communicated to you through a cell phone in 40 years ago. I was born in Silicon Valley. I saw all the changes happen, right? So we're on a cusp of continual change, and it's happening so fast and so rapidly that the old model of education is just splintering like an old boat and falling into the ocean. And yet we're still promoting it. So what's the new model of education? And that's what we're going to go over. But before we do, I just want to reinforce the idea of these 3 different philosophical paradigms: Athens, Berlin, and Jerusalem. And I want to offer a managerial construct of good, better, best. Now, if somebody wants to say to me, well, Dr. Bliss, the best form of education is, a 4-to-1 student ratio with somebody that has like 3 PhDs tutoring my student in classical studies. And I would say, yes. May we resurrect C.S. Lewis, and may your child be accepted into Oxford, and may you have an individual tutorial with C.S. Lewis in Oxford. But what about the rest of us? Right? So that might be the best, and I hope we can get close to the best, but okay. And then there's better. We can always do it better. We can always bring in there's a lot of better to be done. And then there's just good. And good means that there's a creator God that created you and created the universe, and it's a substantive reality. And all of our educational curriculum is based upon the creator God construct. That's good. Anything other than that is not good. Okay? Not good. And you can see the fruits. Judge a tree by its fruits. Look at what's happening. 32nd in the nations of the earth in our educational system. We can't, throwing money at it won't solve the problem because, again, a valueless education is valueless. So what do we do here? We combine all three. We use the proficiency, not of the Russian grade thing, and we'll get into that with the 4 components, but the proficiency and the efficiency we provide by using the Charter Management Organization. We use the classical paradigm because it works, and because it's right, and because it's good, and because it's true. And we center in our teachers and our administrators are all centered in on Jesus Christ. And that bar can't be moved. And, maybe a board may, decide exactly what that is. And each board has to define that because they have to hire their own faculty. But the standard which we operate in, the people that I hire, their faith is most exceptionally clear by their deeds and by the recommendations of others and by their own personal testimony. So moving forward, the big question here is the innovation and change that's taking place in education, which has to do with computers. We can't use computers. We're classical. Get over yourself, right? Get over yourself. You have to use computers because, and here's the reason why. It's not that knowledge is better communicated by computers, but certain knowledge is better communicated by computers, and that's not good English. But understand what I'm saying. There's certain forms of knowledge that are should be communicated, but is communicated more effectively in a computer platform than in a personal one-on-one level. And why do I say that? Because science has shown it. Because a kid can go at their own pace off of a computer on certain subject areas where they're just manipulating data. They're just answering questions. They're just taking a test. They're just getting data, right? They're just getting the data at their own pace and their own style in their own way. Each student being individualized. Some students like videos. Some people like to read. Some people like to listen. Some people want to take notes. Some people, want to do it. People talk about doing it tactily. Well, I haven't figured that one out perfectly yet, but I'm working on it. But the computer allows the student to be the learning platform to be adapted to the individual student's needs without compromising the curriculum, and allows the student to go at their own pace. Oh my gosh. That's one of the components that we'll talk about, which is mastery-based education. It's only been around for 2,000 years. And the progressives have come in and said, well, we got a better idea. And no, you don't. Okay? So this innovation has been thought that it would completely change education. And it will, but not as fast as everybody thought it would. Why? Because there is nothing more resistant to change as a social system than core political values and education. Because my kids can be educated the way I was educated. It was good enough for me, it should be good enough for them. Right? Well, that might be true, but you're not what people call homo digitalis. I don't think with my extended thumb. I use that for a hammer. I don't know how to, this thumb thing that the kids do like with record speed. I mean, I saw somebody in the airplane doing 2 cell phones at the same time, texting on both of them with their extended thumb. In academia, we jokingly call it homo digitalis because, they're a new species. But it actually changes the way kids think. You think there's some way you're going to stop this process, by the way? Well, think again, right? There's no way you can put the genie back in the bottle. And how it is like unto Gutenberg's press. That's how radical the change is right now. that I can communicate to you in this video without a whole bunch of studio production is so utterly amazing. And people don't understand the day in which we live, the revolution that is at our heels and at our hips. Well, we can resist that. We can resist it, but it will be to no avail, right? And if you go back and look at history, you can't resist the innovation. But you can take that which is good and separate it from that which is not good, which is kind of a classical construct, isn't it? So this brings us into a construct of Bloom's taxonomy. And this will end this last session of the overview, but it's really important to understand this, right? And I'm going to go over to a whiteboard here. I'm just going to sally over the whiteboard so I can kind of show you Bloom's taxonomy. But it's accepted, if you will, accepted fact of the way the human brain works, right? Is it works in different levels of knowledge. So we're going to go on over to the whiteboard here, and we'll talk about Bloom's taxonomy. So in Bloom's taxonomy, we have different levels. It'd be nice if my marker worked. We have different levels of knowledge, okay? And I'm going to go over this with you. And the lowest level of knowledge is comprehension, okay? The next level of knowledge is synthesis. The next level of knowledge is analysis. The next level of knowledge is evaluation. And the next level of knowledge is creative thinking. Now, I would hold divine revelation up here that would kind of go down like that. But we won't discuss that right now. So I'm going to delete that from the discussion. And we'll just talk about what exists in Bloom's taxonomy. So this level of knowledge, comprehension, and summarization can happen on the computer better than it can happen on a one-to-one educational experience with a private Christian classical tutor. But getting your brain to think at an evaluative level, where, notice the word value there in the evaluated level, or to think in an analytical way, critical thinking, these are really higher level skills. Now you go do your PhD, you can come up here and create some knowledge. All right, so that's Bloom's taxonomy, pretty simple. The computer will allow you to go quicker, faster, and better in terms of comprehension and summarization. Lo and behold, our partner, Alpha and Omega Education, been at it for 40 years creating Christian curriculum, has been bought out by the #1 digital provider of educational material in the world. But they're staying with their Christian educational product because there's a market niche. And it's all mastery-based education. So hold on to your seatbelts. We're going to be going in the next video. And this next set of videos is for training, for certification purposes, for the administrators and for the learning coaches. These last two videos have been kind of an introduction for school board members and for executives that are working within the schools we partner with. And we're looking forward to, taking the world for Jesus, right? One child at a time, one mind at a time. And God bless you for listening. And God bless you for hearing. Thank you.